When you think of K-pop on a global scale, when you think of BLACKPINK, it's pretty much impossible not to picture Jennie Kim. She's got this incredible stage presence, this undeniable talent. She's a superstar in every sense of the word. But the story of how she got there? Oh, it is so much more complicated than just fame and fortune.
And that right there is the question we're really digging into today. What is the actual true price of becoming a household name around the world? I mean, we see the highlights, right? The hit songs, the fashion campaigns, the roaring crowds. But what's the bill that comes due when the lights go off? There's a whole other story happening behind that perfect public image, and that's where things get really interesting. So yeah, this is her story. We're going to peel back the layers of the global icon to really get to know the person, the artist, and the unbelievable challenges she's had to face on this wild ride to the top. All right, to do this right, we have to start at the very beginning. Way before BLACKPINK, before the headlines, before all the fame, we need to go back and meet the young girl who had this one single, powerful dream. So Jennie was born in Seoul, but then, at just 8 years old, her entire world changes. Her family moves to New Zealand. Can you even imagine that? A new country, a totally different culture, a whole new language to learn. But she did it, became completely fluent in English. But even with all that change, one thing stayed constant in her heart. She was going to go back to Korea and become a K-pop star. That dream was everything. And that dream leads us right into the next chapter of her life. A chapter where that dream collides with a pretty brutal reality. See, wanting to be a K-pop star means you have to enter one of the most intense, most demanding training systems on the planet. It's a system designed to forge idols, but man, it asks for absolutely everything you have in return. And so in 2010, she takes that leap. She goes back to South Korea, and she nails the YG Entertainment audition. But look at this timeline. That was just the first step. What came next wasn't fame, it wasn't a record deal. It was a long, grueling 6-year journey as a trainee before she ever set foot on stage as a member of BLACKPINK. 6 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's a huge chunk of your teenage life. While most kids are just, going to school, hanging out with friends, she was dedicating every single waking moment to training. And the crazy part? There was zero guarantee it would ever pay off. The dedication that takes is just mind-blowing. So what exactly does a 6-year training gauntlet look like? Well, it's nonstop. We're talking about incredibly intense competition with dozens of other talented kids who want the exact same thing you do. It means ridiculously long hours of practice, singing, dancing, learning languages, day after day. All of it happening under this crushing weight of expectation from the company. But it was right there, in that high-pressure cooker, that her raw talent and just sheer unwavering dedication really started to make her stand out from the crowd. So, after all that grinding for 6 years, she finally makes it. She debuts. And the success? It was like a lightning strike. BLACKPINK became a global phenomenon practically overnight. But this is where the story gets complicated. Because as we all know, the absolute brightest spotlights tend to cast the very darkest shadows. I mean, their rise to the top was just meteoric. As you can see here, it was all built on these two massive pillars. They were dropping record-breaking hits one after another, and at the same time, they were building this huge, passionate international fan base. That dream she had as a little girl, it didn't just come true. It exploded on a scale that almost nobody could have possibly predicted. And this slide, wow, this really lays out the two sides of her new life perfectly. On the one hand, you've got everything you could ever want. She's a global superstar, loved for her talent and charisma by millions of fans. But then there's the price. For every bit of fame, there was an equal and opposite reaction. Constant, suffocating scrutiny, baseless accusations of being lazy in her performances, and just a relentless, never-ending tidal wave of online hate and cyberbullying. And this is so key to understanding the pressure. It wasn't just about big mistakes. It was everything. Literally every facial expression she made on stage, what she wore to the airport, a single word she said in an interview. Every tiny little move was put under a microscope, picked apart, and criticized by millions of people online. Can you even begin to imagine living like that 24/7? It's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Now, of course, all of that took a huge toll on her. How could it not? But this is where the story really takes a turn, because it stops being about what was happening to her, and it becomes about how she chose to respond. This is the story of her unbreakable spirit and how she started to wrestle back control of her own narrative. When you look at what she did next, it's almost like you can see a deliberate step-by-step plan for resilience. This wasn't just a random reaction. First, she made a conscious choice to defy the negative story people were trying to write about her. Then she got to work, systematically proving her critics wrong, not with words, but with her actions. And finally, she started to use the very platform that caused her so much pain to stand for something bigger. This right here says it all. It would have been so easy to just shrink under all that negativity, to let it break her. But she made a powerful choice. She simply refused to let the haters define who she was. She wasn't going to be a victim of her own success. So how'd she do it? Well, she channeled all that insane pressure into a new kind of purpose. She didn't back down, she doubled down on her work. She answered all those lazy accusations by delivering some of the most powerful, undeniable performances of her career on the world's biggest stages. And maybe the most important part, she started to use her voice to talk about things like mental health, which in turn inspired millions of her fans to find their own strength. And that really brings us to who Jennie is today. Her journey has shaped her into something much more than just a pop icon. She's become a totally new kind of role model, one whose story isn't just about success, but about the incredible strength it took to navigate the darkest parts of that success. When you look at the whole picture, Jennie's story is this incredible lesson in perseverance and courage. It's a powerful reminder that behind all the designer clothes, the glamour, and the icon status, there is a real person who has fought through some unbelievable obstacles. Her journey really proves that becoming a star is one thing, but learning how to survive stardom is a whole other battle. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. In the world we live in right now, this era of just constant online judgment, not just for celebrities, but for everyone, what can we really learn from Jennie Kim's story? What does it teach us about what real strength looks like today, about resilience, and about the incredible power we all have to write our own story, no matter what anyone else says?